Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the NORA Sim Xfinity Series Daytona 300. This is, of course, as the name implies, the Xfinity Series from Daytona. We're currently sitting in practice. We're going to let them go for a little bit more while we discuss a couple things that, I think this first week we should do probably everyone, and especially since this is the first time on this channel. I figure, you know, get into a little bit of, once again, I know we did it yesterday, but Josh, my cohort here, is owner, runner, and the man behind the scenes, the man that does it all at NORA. And Josh, why don't you give us, I know we did it yesterday again, but give us a little bit of background here.
Well, kind of like we said yesterday, Nick, started out obviously not using the AI. Real drivers, real series, same series you'll see on here, Cup, Xfinity, which we call the B series, and then the Truck series. Like I mentioned last night too, we kind of had this idea for a long time now, and finally decided to bring it into form per se. I know we've done a lot of testing, and I will say, yesterday's truck race was a thriller and definitely something we have not noticed from all the testing we've done. And I know one thing we mentioned a lot yesterday was kind of the different mix of drivers and teams and such. As you see Danica Patrick on screen, I believe she drives for you. As you brought her back, we've got a mix of old Supercross riders in the field today as well. A couple Cup guys we brought down, a couple, I believe, truck guys we brought up. Maybe I'm not. I could be wrong.
I'm not sure on that one. I think there's some old Cup guys back from back in the
True.
day.
Yes.
Some Cup guys that got brought down, I believe the only two are actually our drivers, oddly enough, because I believe it's just Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch that got brought down.
Yes.
And then, as you mentioned, the mix, I think it's a team of 4 Supercross guys, as we were actually on Justin Barcia there for a moment. And then I believe it's Eli Tomac, Cooper Webb, and Jason Anderson.
Yes.
Making up the rest of that group. As you can kind of see there the two of them are. And
Yeah.
you've got some different combinations. You can see there was for just a second, there is on the outside. Kyle Busch, currently running the number 8. Napa Auto Parts, Toyota Supra, for me. So there's some neat things. And then you've got Ricky Craven in the number 32 Tide car. Jerry Nadeau's running in this group in the number 25 UAW Delphi Camaro. And then Noah Gragson. And those guys are all teammates. Jeb Burton getting a ride on my team in his dad's number. Harrison is also somewhere out here running his dad's number for Josh. Ty Majeski out here in the 45. And there's some good combinations, some fun things. Jack Moff in the number 69 running the Kentucky Kid. For anybody that knows that number, I thought it'd be a nice little tribute there to the super bikes that run around the world. The basically Formula Ones of super bikes. Number 69 was the Kentucky Kid, and I cannot for the life of me remember his actual name, but I do know that he's with us anymore. And I thought it'd be a fitting tribute to run that number on that car with as many dirt guys as we have out here.
But I know one driver we did miss too. I'm surprised they missed him. He's driving for me, but Chase Briscoe also got brought down.
Yes, that is a Cup guy. I think we kind of overlooked the fact that he's a Cup guy because he hasn't made a Cup start officially.
Point. Very good point.
But you can also see on screen Bobby Labonte out there as well, old Cup guy, former Xfinity champion in real life. So there's a couple of those in there. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen. Once again, we're using the same skill set range that we did yesterday, 125 to 120. And that provides some excellent racing across the board and allows cars that wouldn't have a chance normally to have a chance. Arguably, Danica, Travis Pastrana are going to be 2 cars that are going to be at the back on a regular basis. at any normal track we go to. But as we come to these kind of tracks, all of a sudden, you might see Danica or Pastrana at the front. You might see names that you wouldn't be accustomed to on a regular basis at the front being at the front. As we actually will cover it again, we had happen yesterday in the truck race. Rico Abreu taking the checkered flag, one of the second lowest overall rated drivers coming into that race, and he took the checkered flag.
Yeah, definitely a surprise. And we kind of touched on it yesterday too. Granted, we can't do the full, I believe trucks would be 23 races this year. We can't do the full schedules, but we are going to do, the playoff format and, all the chase rules. So knowing that, I believe Corey Danielson, his owner, put all of his 4 points he gained from winning that race towards his skill. But even then, I think he's still one of the lower rated guys. So the big thing to watch throughout that series will be if he can stay inside that top 20 and make that win count towards the playoffs.
And he'll have the chance in the playoffs to score yet another kind of surprise win at Dega, because that'll be one of the playoff races in that series. So that'll be interesting to see, and that'll be interesting here too, because Dega is that wild card, and a chase driver who needs a win may not get that win.
It's just like real race, like I can say real racing, and as far as iRacing is concerned, real racing. But it's these races, nobody's guaranteed anything. I think you'll see it again here today. A little longer race, 120 laps. Still doing the stages though, lap 30 and lap 60. But it's going to be interesting. I know we were both surprised at how tame the front few trucks were last night. I'll be interested to see if it kind of plays out the same, style race, or hey, we might drop the green flag and go right to 3 wide. You never know.
Absolutely. So I think we're good to go here on this practice. Let's go ahead and, as we did yesterday, ride along for a qualifying lap with one of the competitors from the truck series. Today we'll ride along with Noah Gregson, as he was your top guy in practice. So we'll go ahead and ride along with him in qualifying.
For anybody too that tunes in here today, plenty of time to get in if you'd like. I know we had somebody last night ask. You just got to join the Sim Series Discord. Let us know, what driver you want, sponsors, etc. We'll get you set up. But another thing I want to touch on too, Nick, which I know I'm excited for personally because it opens up a lot of opportunities for us as an actual league. But the launch of the new YouTube channel.
Absolutely. And I do want to get in real quick with just before we get into too much about this YouTube channel and the race in general and all that. If you're tuning in and you want to go back and watch the truck race, you will not find it on the YouTube channel. You will find it on my personal Twitch channel. We were not eligible to do the broadcast upload on YouTube yesterday, so we were able to use my Twitch channel. So if you want to go back and watch the race, the truck race, if you missed it, you want to see it, you'll have to tune in to Nick_Nightmare19 on Twitch. If not, go ahead and give us a subscribe here on the YouTube channel and be caught up for all the action moving forward.
And that's the big thing. I think you had mentioned it yesterday. If myself or you or any admins really, for say, if we're not racing one night, we might be able to throw up an actual broadcast on the YouTube channel as well. So
Absolutely.
kind of will help us financially, obviously, for sure. And I think it'll be neat to see maybe potentially get different guys in the booth. Kind of like we've already had a couple people want to join the booth for
Even
just
this,
for these
yeah,
AI races.
Yeah. And I've said in multiple occasions, I'm all for having a couple people. Not get too overcrowded up here in the booth, but just a few people. We get a nice little group, a little bit of chemistry going, and we'll be good to go. I think we've already kind of hit off well in our broadcasting aspect after that truck race, and I think we'll continue to do well together for these races as Cragson comes through 3 and 4 now on his flyer, and we'll see how everybody filters out and who's going to get the pole here for the first race of the season.
I know something different. I actually had stepped away yesterday for the truck qualifying, but I was hearing you say a lot of guys are taking an arc in the middle of the corner. I think it was Junior. I noticed right there, Gregson kind of held the bottom a little bit better in the corners, but it's not going to equal a very quick lap time.
Not for him, as I do believe it was Jason Anderson On the pole, well, actually, yes, Jason Anderson will be your pole sitter here today. Eli Tomac, Jerry Nadeau, Ricky Craven, and Justin Barsha. So 3 motocross guys to the top in qualifying. Top 5. But as we all know, this is Daytona, and where you qualify means nothing.
I will say I think we need to fix potentially those paint schemes. I noticed a little something there, but
On this one?
yeah, there might be 2 manufacturer logos, but nonetheless.
It's below the Ford logo, isn't it? No, it's not. Are you sure?
Yeah, I think it's on the back.
Oh, it very well could be on the back. You're right. Yep, I can see the tail lines. Yep, that'll be something that we'll have to fix on this car. That is kind of the things that happen sometimes. You got to pull something from somewhere, and you get little mistakes here and there. But I think we'll be good to go, and I think we're good to pull forward to the race. We'll go ahead and advance there, and we'll get set up with the grid. We'll see how everybody's going to do. This is a big deal. So for those that are wondering, this is once again a full length race once more, just the same as it was for the truck race. This is 20 laps longer than the truck race, and it would appear, as I have been informed, that NASCAR has a new start time for the Xfinity Series race in real life, and so we have followed suit, and it's a 5 o'clock start time.
Yeah, definitely something different, because I believe you had said these guys start at what, 1 or 2?
Usually it was like 2 or 3 ish. It was midday, high, the sun high, and the majority of the race was during the day. But now it's going to be at night. So your front row will be Jason Anderson with Eli Tomac to his outside. Then we have Jerry Nadeau and Ricky Craven making up the second row. In the third row is Justin Barsha and Matthew Hibbs. In the fourth row is a pair of teammates, Kevin Harvick and Ty Majeski. In the fifth row is Jack Moff and Chase Briscoe. Making up the sixth row?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, is Haley Deegan, who we didn't talk about, I think, at all so far. She is here in the Xfinity Series, so you are actually right about a truck driver getting pulled up. And Jeb Burton. In the seventh row, Harrison Burton and Bobby Labonte. In the ninth row is Cooper Webb and Noah Gragson. In the 10th row is Kyle Busch and Leroy Jenkins. In the 11th row, I'm lost on what row I'm in at this point. It's the 61 and Jeffrey Earnhardt. Coming to the second to last row of the grid, it's Ryan Beat and Doug Matag. And rounding out the grid on the final row, Danica Patrick and Travis Pastrana. Oh, no.
There's kind of one thing, too, to note on from yesterday, as I think you can hop in and get us up. If you saw from Jacob Weaver, started shotgun on the grid, and I think by the end of, I would say even before halfway in the stage, he was already up battling for the lead and competing at the front. So, kind of like you said, starting position does not matter.
I believe it was 6 laps.
And you got to remember too, that was kind of with a team field. Like I said, we could drop the green here with these guys. Granted, a smaller field. I believe this is our smallest field we have, but we could drop the green flag and we could go instantly 3 wide.
Absolutely. For those that are wondering what the stages will be, they will be lap 30 and lap 60, and then a run to the finish. I did look that up and make sure of it.
Yeah, I did it too in pre-race. But one thing too, if the situation arises that we saw yesterday, I have an idea to kind of save us from having damaged cars. We will see if, like I said, if the situation
You
comes up
mean
again.
you mean doing the weird lap thing that they did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we got one person in chat, old Mr. Josh Susi. He's got one of
Yay.
his drivers, actually 2 drivers, starting right there in row 2.
Yes, he does. And then it was Leroy Jenkins a little further back, and Noah Gregson, I believe, is still in the top 10.
It just goes to show that, like I said, like we've been
No,
talking about all week so far.
I'm
Well,
wrong.
yeah, all week technically. Super speedways, anything can happen, and I think we've noticed it right here. I mean, Kevin Harvick has, from what I've seen with what we've done tests, has dominated this field, and he's sitting inside row 4.
Yep. Um, it'll be interesting to see how somebody like Kyle Busch, who's another one of those top drivers, is going to be able to make his way through the field as we come to take the green flag for the first race at Daytona in the Xfinity Series.
You already saw people in the back starting to jump out of line. Definitely different than last night's race, as the outside line did not get a good jump.
No, they did not. It does look like, in fact, Jerry Nadeau is going to clear outside and try and make a move, but it's going to be all for naught as that outside line is just not there yet. But if they can form up, you might see that 25 car start coming forward. As you mentioned it, we might see 3 wide right away. The 98 goes to the outside, and Nadeau is, in fact, battling for the lead.
It's going to be interesting. I know, obviously with AI, you can do kind of test races, and I'll be honest, I was a little concerned when I read that message this morning. But if history repeats itself, it seems like we're going to have a good shot here today, as we're almost getting turned, coming to the complete lap 1.
Absolutely, and it's going to be Jason Anderson, I believe, leading the field for the first lap here today, and it in fact was. And the message that Josh was alluding to was the fact that last night I did an Xfinity test race, 120 laps, and just kind of let them have at it, so I didn't have the stages in. And they produced 7 cautions. Now, if they produce 7 cautions, well, that's going to be interesting, to say the least. But there's also the possibility that we have a reoccurrence of yesterday, where the only caution that really happened that wasn't a stage was the last caution of the race right at the end.
It's the front couple again, kind of tame right now. Harvick jumped out of line from second, and I think it's going to end up costing him here. But from like 4th on back, it's a way different story than last night. Like I said, we saw probably the first 5 or so single file and kind of ride for majority of that first stage, and already you're seeing 3 wide, almost, I would say, about all the way back to, I think it was Jeffrey Earnhardt back there. So I believe Nick stepped out, but tell you what though, Jacob Weaver brought over his Supercross guys, and Jason Anderson showing he is a very versatile athlete out here leading the field so far. Harvick trying to pull that second line along, and I believe, can't see who's leading that third line, but already, like I mentioned, a way different start to this race here today than we saw last night. They're battling like it's the last lap already, and you got to get to the front. But like I said, Harvick jumped on a line from running second, and it has definitely cost him. He's dropping back. It looks like Deegan was thinking about poking her nose to the outside with, I believe, Harrison Burton behind her.
And it does look like an interesting fact you mentioned, the motocross guys doing very well, all 4 of them, I believe. I'm not quite sure where Cooper... Oh, no, I can now see Cooper, 5th car on the inside line. So you got all of the motocross guys running well, and Harvick is continuing to try to pull that outside line to the front, as I had somebody who can't respect the sanctity of the equivalent of the red light.
That's what I figured. I heard the mic go up, I think, and it's like, oh, I guess I'll take over for a little bit. But it looks like we're going to have our first casualty of losing the draft, as I believe Ty Majeski is kind of losing the draft back there, which lap 5, we saw yesterday, depending on if you can hold the draft, you'd be okay. But definitely way early, in my opinion, to be losing the draft.
I believe he's still in the draft at this point. I believe he's going to be able to catch right here, and he'll be able to hold on. I don't think this is a lost draft just yet.
'Cause it looks like Harvick pulling that second line. We might have a battle for the lead unless he gets shuffled out here.
It does look like he's going to get shuffled out as Matthew Hibbs puts the car in the middle and moves the middle line forward and shoves Harvick to the outside. Bobby Labonte pushing him to the front. He's trying to.
Which one thing we pointed out pre-race as well, super speedway starting from the back, not that big of a deal. Our final row, I believe, was Danica Patrick inside, Travis Pastrana outside. They're both still nose to tail on that inside line. I believe that is about 7th or so back. Slowly but surely making their way up, and they're kind of just, letting people make their move to the second or third line, and they're just staying in the main line and saying, you know what, you guys can go up there. It's way too early for that.
Yep, fill that gap, move to the front. Absolutely. I know I saw at one point, I had mentioned it right before the start. Kyle Busch, he was all the way up to second car on the outside line at one point.
We're 4 wide.
Again. We are 4 wide. I believe. Nope, they are still 4 wide here back in the middle of the pack between the 62, the 61, the 51, and the 4. This is where it gets dicey, especially coming into this corner. It does look like they are going to be able to make it. They're still squeezing pretty well there, but I think everything will be okay. I think they're going to get back to 3 wide. Everybody will be okay. And in fact, we touched on it. I said I didn't think he was going to lose the draft just yet. And you can see him back here on the tail. He is still with the front pack. It is time to just as they're 4 wide for a second.
Tell you what, something we touched on, obviously, again, I know I just brought it up again, but starting at the back, how about starting up front? Jerry Nadeau, I believe, started 3rd on the field, and he has dropped now to the back.
Yes, he's all the way at the back, and he risks losing the draft. Now, of course, I do believe that he is in the same position with Ty, as I believe he's in a good position for right now. But he is, of course, in that position where he could, in fact, lose the draft as the new leader on the high side, Harrison Burton.
2 teammates with, I believe, Susi Motorsports in Craven and I believe it's Gregson, as they look to go around the outside. It might tuck back in line as now Burton's teammate Briscoe get a squeeze in the middle. I believe they're 4 wide.
I believe that you are correct, and they actually got on the brakes there. You could see as they just tapped the brakes there just a little bit, and I believe Danica's now going to try to shove her nose underneath. Is that the 61 of Jarrett Brooks, and she's going to squeeze him out to the outside line. As now Danica Patrick moves to the 5th place on the inside line, and I believe, if we recall, that was my pick to win this race. And she's now going to look to the outside and be the leader on the outside line.
It was. I did jot down our top 5. You had Danica and I had Pastrana. Oddly enough, our top 5s were completely different, and we did not share one driver.
And oddly enough, we both have horses in the race early on up here.
We can't touch on it enough, though. Granted, it is AI, and we have no idea what they're going to give us. But yesterday, we were surprised at how well, the front couple ran. I would say maybe 2nd on back, or I would say even 3rd back to Deegan right now. They've kind of stayed nose to tail and just seem content with getting some laps clicked off. As everybody else is kind of trying to get to the front and go 4 wide and, cause the big one before we're halfway in stage 1. But those front 3 or 4 seem to be content right now.
And it's starting to get into that single file train on the inside line. And you just don't have enough cars on the outside now to really do anything. With the lack of cars on the outside, the inside line is just going to continue to motor, and you'll just continue to fall down if you don't have enough cars. And I'm sorry, but just 2 cars is not going to get it done.
Interesting note, too. I don't know, maybe you would know more about this with the AI, but, we talked about yesterday with the smoothness rating. I think a lot of guys were thinking, that's how smooth you are on the wheel. But in fact, the way iRacing has it coded is basically how your setup is. With longer runs, Ty, we're not necessarily at a super speedway, but you saw it last time coming off turn 2, and you see it a couple times off turn 4 where the AI step out a little bit. Could we see potentially a spin off one of these corners?
I think it's potentially a very good possibility that we could see a spin. We could also see a wreck coming off one of those corners. from one of those cars getting tight and not being able to keep the car all the way to the bottom.
Which, if last night proved anything, the AI give us a bunch of unknowns every time we hit the track. We've done numerous tests, and I would say everyone's been different. Is Deegan looking to the outside? Maybe
Deegan's
trying to get her name for a lead.
Deegan is finally going to look to make a move. And you mentioned Jerry Nadeau being dead last in the field just a few laps ago. He's 5th on the inside line. So
Yeah.
the way that it changes at these super speedways is just incredible, and it's what makes super speedway racing some of the most fun to watch, some of the most enjoyable in my mind. And Travis Pastrana, who started dead last in this race, absolutely dead last, is currently running in 3rd.
One thing I was going to point out a couple laps ago, we talked about it a couple laps ago, actually. Now at this point, Ty Majeski about to lose the draft, way back there. And at one point, I believe he was about 5th or 6th on the inside line, and now he's pushing, I believe. Oh, I lost him now. I thought he was up in the 3rd
Nope,
line.
he's dead last again.
It just goes on the fact of it can change in a snap of a finger, and right there, I think Majeski proved that for us.
Yep, and he's going around the outside of Craven at the back, but at the front, it's the middle line and the outside line have finally started to form a little, and you can see Deegan is pushing to the front, as it's almost like there's some instinct that doesn't exist, but yet they somehow know when it is time to go for the stage, as it is Cooper Webb on the outside line leading them around, and they're 3 wide for 2nd at this point.
It's, I again can't touch on it enough. We've brought up numerous times now already. How are the AI going to run this race? Are they going to see a race like last night where the front 5 or so stay single file to the end and then get racy? Are we going to see 3 wide, 4 wide? Are we going to see just 2 lines? I'd say at this point so far we've seen just about every type of racing you can ask for.
Absolutely, they were almost completely single file at one point. I think all for but 6 cars, and now you can see they are tightly packed. The whole field under a blanket, and it is 1st through 24, all within probably, I'd say, 2 seconds.
It's tight for sure. I know, we bumped the ratings up, but even last night, Tyler Courtney proved, I think, every stage just about. It is still very easy to lose the draft. We've seen a couple guys kind of fall back thinking, they're going to be the first victim, but they've hung on. And like you said, our whole field is probably within a second and a half, 2 seconds right now.
And it's been incredible to watch. It's fun to see the names that are at the front, because certainly Deegan is not one of the names that would be up there. Danica is not one of the names that would be up there. Travis Pastrana running in 3rd. It's just the names that you expect to be up there are still up there, as Kyle Busch looks to the outside. He's now going to try to lead that line, and I don't think you could probably pick a better person to lead that line. And that might be a little biased. That might be a little bit of the real-life Kyle Busch. It is what it is. I think right now that line is in fact going backwards, though, as 2 of your drivers have teamed up, the 98 and the 4.
And to answer our question, I see now it's changed to 1.1 seconds, but the previous lap, the whole field was under 8 tenths. I believe the last place car was like 8 or 0.87 or so. So we were even wrong with that. The whole field was within a second.
Absolutely, and I thought for sure it'd be a little bit more than that, but it wasn't. As now Kyle Busch leads the absolute outside line, and in fact, I think Chase Briscoe is trying to make it there, but Danica forces him to the outside. I think he was trying to stay to the inside, and it's Kevin Harvick leading the middle line, as now Danica goes to lead the high line.
And if you watch, we touched on it a couple times, that smoothness rating, maybe being too tight, not being able to hold the bottom, being too loose, maybe not being able to hold the bottom. We saw it a couple laps ago with Harvick and Briscoe, almost synchronized, came off the bottom off the corner. And they almost got pushed out of line, which right now they both, and by choice went to the top now. But it's one of those things. If you can't hold the bottom, one of these guys gets aggressive, pushes you out of line, you're going to fall, just like we've seen Harvick and Briscoe do.
And now we've seen pretty much everybody kind of cycle out to that middle line through the inside. And it's actually a gap there on that inside line between third and fourth, which I don't think we've seen at all, ever.
And I just mentioned it, and there you go. Believe it or not, two teammates, Craven and Nadu. Nadu drifted off the bottom, and Craven stuck his nose in there, and Craven will now move into fourth, as Nadu, I believe, has Majeski behind him trying to make that second line work now.
Absolutely does. Once again, Majeski goes from dead last on the field back up towards the front. It's just been an incredible thing. As, oh my word, I believe that was the 60 of Doug Matog almost turning himself off the nose of Justin Barcia there as they came off of 4. He did exactly what you've been mentioning, the sliding up, and then as he tried to come back down, Barcia was already there.
Well, they don't call him Bam Bam for nothing.
You are not wrong about that.
It's going to be interesting. We're 10 to go in the first stage, and I would say this is more action-packed, but still early. I mean, I'm pretty sure you set no faster pairs, just like the real NORA League. So,
absolutely.
Again, obviously the AI, don't know that, but if we get a wreck early, or even early in stage 2, that could change the complexion of this race tenfold.
And as you can see, once again, Nadu has to step on the brakes just a bit, and 3 cars are able to slot in front of him on that inside line. As now the inside line is starting to become single file again. But Danica just not content to sit. She goes to the outside in the middle of the corner, and she's going to try and lead that line. As now Ricky Craven's in that middle line as well. And Kyle Busch is trying to actually get around his teammate on the outside with help from Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, this just goes to show that you can go from the back to the front. I would argue, obviously in the, I guess we'll call it the real NORA League with, the human drivers, and even in real life, you can go from the back to the front in a matter of a lap. Cooper Webb went from the front to the back, and he's kind of still riding back there, but it can be done. I believe now we'll have 8 to go in the stage. Yes, 8 to go in the stage. Mm-hmm. So nobody's able to pull up next to Anderson. So we'll have to see if somebody can do that. But if it can be done, I think we're going to see it here in the next couple laps.
Absolutely, and the line is starting to form on that outside line. Danica Patrick is the leader on that outside line, and she's starting to come towards the front. Are they finally starting to get that outside line to a formed level enough that maybe they can challenge? It looked like they were starting to, and then Deegan and Matog kind of slowing themselves up there, and now you can watch the middle line starts to fall back a little bit.
It looked like Deegan either got tight or loose there going into 3. As we now will have our first casualty of losing the draft as we come to 7 to go on the stage. But yeah, if they're going to make a run, I would say it has to be here in a couple laps, as Jared Brooks is the one that lost the draft.
And I do believe he absolutely has at this point lost the draft.
And that, again, like I mentioned before about, maybe obviously this is longer runs than the truck had. So, could it have been something to where he got loose and not being up where, say, Deegan or Gregson or some of those guys are to have help behind him? Did he get loose or tight off the corner, have to check up, and that just wasn't enough to hold the draft?
Absolutely. And I do believe right now somebody like Danica is really wishing that there was a car that was holding its line just a little bit better behind her, because she has been having a great run. But we continue to watch as Deegan kind of moves up the track, comes back down. They lose the draft-ish, and you can just see they continue to go from being 3rd or 4th to about back to 6th, 7th, 8th, possibly even outside the top 10. So it's just one of those things where you keep watching Deegan, and even Danica really kind of needs to hold her line a little bit better as well. But it's just something you keep watching where they have to get on the brakes, and it's just hurting them consistently.
I mean, we're coming down, granted they've been kind of racy the whole stage, but we're coming down now, 5 to go in stage 1. Jason Anderson has showed this field the entire race.
As Danica actually gets shuffled to the outside completely, Barcia now is the leader on that middle line, and Deegan still continues to run. So we'll see if maybe Danica was the issue, if Deegan was the issue. We'll see what the issue might have been but Barsh is now going to try to lead this line to the front.
I believe at this point in time, I don't know if Anderson's just that good of a lead car, or I don't. We've seen numerous people trying to get the outside line going, and it'd be names you would think would be able to pull it. You know, I know Briscoe was leading at one point, Kyle Busch, Harvick. Nobody can seem to get the run right now. I don't know. Maybe rubber laid down. I don't know. Hopefully it changes though, because it's looking like Anderson's got the field covered, at least for this stage anyway.
And I do believe that will likely be the result that we end up with for the stage. I can't see Moff or Pastrana, especially not Pastrana, wanting to get out of line, risk losing the spot. I mean, this is Pastrana's chance to really get some stage points here that he likely wouldn't have throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned last night, it all comes down to obviously how the owners want to work, their points. But looking at where he's at compared to everybody else, he would need a couple good races to get kind of caught up, per se. But now, even then, just to make the playoffs and kind of give yourself that little extra buffer, stay competitive in points. Any help you can get is going to be huge.
And we keep talking about stage points. The two that I'd like to harpen on is Craven and Danica. Just a couple laps ago, they were both up inside the top 10 looking at stage points, and now they're all the way back well outside the top 10.
Yeah, well, we're coming to 2 to go here in the stage. I know one driver now, I believe, would be inside the top 10, Leroy Jenkins. A couple laps ago, again, we've talked about it all race so far. Was riding around in the back, barely hanging on to the draft, just kind of biding his time. And now sits in 8th with 2 to go in the stage. And don't look now, we're getting racy in that second line again.
Absolutely, and I had just mentioned the two of them, that they were outside of the range of stage points, and both Danica Patrick and Ricky Craven have just managed to find their way back into the top 10.
So I actually had 3 teammates lined up there in Majeski, Harvick, and Briscoe. I just don't think Majeski has a car worth handling right now, and just raw speed. Harvick got up behind him and instantly jumped out from behind him. And then Briscoe just jumped to his inside to force him to the third line as we're coming to the white flag.
As Danica jumps back to the outside, she's going to once again have help from her trusty partner, Hailie Deegan, but actually Deegan's going to drop off and leave her. So will she get help from her teammate now?
Danica made the right decision there, I think. I believe she would have been 11th coming to the line, having to get around, I believe it was Doug Mytag, as he now jumps out of line to give Deegan the spot. But I was saying, I believe at the time that was the right move to try and get back in the stage points. But I think Mytag should have held his ground right there as we're coming into turn 3 for the final time in stage 1.
Absolutely, and I believe they're going to end up single file through to the end of this big group here. And I don't really think, as Deegan jumps out of line, this could be huge because she is 10th. Throw it there. So let me get the results up for you in the stage, as Jason Anderson takes the stage win, followed by Jack Moss, Travis Pastrana, Eli Tomac, Harrison Burton, Jerry Nadeau, Bobby Labonte, Leroy Jenkins, Ricky Craven, and as I said, I thought it could be a mistake by Deegan going to the outside, and it was. Matthew Hibbs falls in as the 10th car, Hailie Deegan 11th.
And it's something, maybe down the line, maybe Iris can put stages in or something, and not even more so for AI, but for us too. But, they obviously don't know, stages. Luckily, we didn't see pit stops like the truck race so far, but you never know. Definitely a different first stage we saw last night, though. Can't say I'm surprised because the AI tend to get racy on super speedways, but I will say I'm pleasantly surprised. Well, not pleasantly surprised, but surprised that Jason Anderson was able to command the field like he did.
Absolutely, and to watch Moff just kind of run second the whole stage, just behind him. Although, in fairness, it isn't too much different from what we saw last night.
Yeah, I mean, the front couple, yeah. I mean, we definitely saw more racing, I guess you could say mid-pack. One thing, too, which I'll be honest, I haven't run the Xfinity cars since I would say actually last Daytona in February for NORA, but I don't know if the draft package is that different. But like I said, it just looked like it didn't matter who was leading that second or third line, but they could not get past like fifth or so.
And I don't know if that, well, they started out well, and I think it has to do with the amount of cars. But as it looks like, Anderson and Moff are both going to stay out, and it's just Pastrana, Tomac, Burton, Nadu, Labonte, Jenkins, and Craven hitting pit road as the rest of the field also decides to stay out here at the end of the stage. So a big shift in what we saw from last night, where I think it was 4 trucks stayed out. The majority of the field stays out this time.
Which that'll be interesting too, because I would have to say one of the main reasons being that the pit stop riskiness attribute, could potentially a lower rating be all the guys that we saw just pit? Could a higher rating be the guys that stayed out? Or could it just be the AI throwing us for a loop? We will never know. But it's one thing you got to consider. I mean, is that potentially what we just saw?
And I would argue, big winner out of the pit stop guys, Bobby Labonte.
I know somebody was just stuck sitting on pit road. I don't know.
That's me.
Potentially. Oh, okay.
Pretty sure that's my truck. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's because when I went to exit my truck, I accidentally hit it again, so it technically put me on pit road. And
well, one thing
rid of it.
that you touched on,
mm-hmm.
Moff ran in second that whole run. Now we'll line up outside of row 1, which will put Matthew Hibbs third. I touched on, maybe it's the draft package in these cars that, doesn't get that second line moving as well. But we clearly saw Moff could keep Anderson out front. Interested to see here. Hibbs kind of flirted, front to back to front. Can he keep Anderson out front, or could we see our first new leader before pit stops?
And I definitely think we will obviously have new leader after pit stops. Because, well, you got the change in that. So it'll also be interesting to keep an eye on Tomac and company behind him, because that will become the battle for the lead. And what'll get really interesting is all these guys are going to have to pit, and that's going to be under green. Those guys that just pitted in this stage are good to go to the end of the next stage. They could theoretically put the majority of the field a lap down.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, it's kind of like you said when they all pitted. It's not like last night where we saw, I believe it was only like 3 or 4 or so stay out. I would say this was split pretty much 50-50. So
I wouldn't even go that far. I'd say the majority of the field stayed out. I think it was only eight cars that came in.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Obviously, like, we've been saying all of stage 1, we saw a lot of fluctuating between guys, coming from the front to the back, or, falling from the front to the back or back to the front, whatever. So it's going to be interesting to see where the guys that stayed out line themselves up here. When I think we saw it last night at one point, somebody tried cutting across to make pit road and missed it, which ended up hurting them, obviously. Could we see the same thing here today? Somebody trying to make pit road from the third lane and they get caught out, and then they pit by themselves.
Absolutely, and it's going to be interesting to see how teams pit, how cars pit, who pits with who. Do they get out far enough in front of Tomac and company? Are they able to hold the lead lap? What's going to happen? It's so much interesting, packed into the next 30 laps, that is going to make the final stage that much more interesting, as well as they are coming back to take the green flag here on stage 2. Jason Anderson, who's led the whole race so far, will continue to lead.
Which is a big question I had. Was it Moff just having that good of a car keeping him out front? Or, is it the draft? We'll see what happens here, as I believe Moff is hanging on his right rear quarter going into turn 1. Hibbs is going to try and fill the gap. Deegan cannot get to Moff as the outside line again. Not a very good start.
And I do believe this is another one of those scenarios where the outside line really didn't get going. And in fact, Deegan's going to look to the outside of Moff, and that very well could put a bow wrap on it for Anderson to continue to lead the pit stops.
which something I was actually going to do for us so we would know the pit window, was going to jump in an Xfinity car here and see how much fuel they could get. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe, so I know trucks I think were like 32 laps or so. So I would say these are about 36, 37.
And I believe Cup cars are just over 40.
Okay, so something we'll have to keep an eye on, as Moff has fallen way further back. It's been all race. And I think it's more so, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I think it's just the draft package in these cars not being able to push right now.
Well, and it was interesting because the very first start of the race, we saw the outside line actually challenge for a moment. As
Here we go.
we're actually maybe going to see a challenge here. They're a little formed up, although Briscoe goes to make a move and Hibbs goes to block, and I think that's going to probably wrap up any chance of that challenge, honestly. Although Gregson holding steady on the outside all by himself. As Jeffrey Earnhardt, who we haven't touched on at all today, I don't believe, pulls up to give him some help. Danica Patrick behind him, and Kyle Busch, her teammate, pushing her along.
Which, like I said, I'm personally going to stick with the whole draft package idea because it sounds like the right thing. But more so to prove that, I think right now, look at who's behind Anderson now. 3 of his teammates. I believe you got Cooper. Well, as I say, that one jumps out of line. But
Tomac jumps out of line.
Cooper Webb and Tomac right there.
And Tomac being the more interesting bit of that story, considering that he's the first car that pitted.
That is very true.
As we continue to keep eyes on those cars, I believe it was Tomac and Labonte that I know off the top of my head. I believe Craven was in that group, and the 66 of Pastrana. As they are 4 wide, currently running. The 60 kind of hitting the bottom there a little bit. Are they going to be able to clear somebody here and hopefully not? Actually, the 60 makes the decision to clear them all as he comes to pit road by himself.
It would be Doug Mytag. Definitely. If my calculations were correct, I think it's a lap or two early, but right around 35 or so laps, under green conditions. So will we see the rest of the field that did not pit come down this time by?
Absolutely, and you can see a little bit of a gap being formed between the first and second group now, as Bobby Labonte, who possibly risks losing the draft after pit stops, as I'm not sure how many of these cars back here are the ones that pitted.
Well, we know Moff didn't. I believe Deegan didn't.
As Danica, Deegan, and Harvick all hit pit road this time.
It's going to get interesting. Like I said, we have not seen anybody else lead this race so far. I believe it's Nadu trying to force his hand and lead a lap.
And he's getting some help from another Chevy teammate. Not his particular teammate, but a Chevy teammate. As actually we have a lap car come up and block the inside line.
And Anderson was smart enough to pull out of line right before the lapper got there, so he will maintain the lead.
And that makes for a very interesting moment because that car was very, very slow coming out of there. So that's going to be something to watch as they move forward, as I believe that is Barsha and Majeski hitting pit road this time.
Harvick had a terrible pit stop. He's not even going to be able to slow the field down. He's just now leaving pit road. I believe he's in the middle of the corner.
Danica, none of them really appear to have had a great pit stop. I think actually, in fairness, they're all pretty much right about where the other car was. So we'll see how that translates, as now we have Kyle Busch and Cooper Webb on the outside battling, although Kyle Busch says, I'm not going to help you. I want to lead myself.
Surprised we haven't seen more. Here we go. So we're going to have our first new leader.
And I do believe this is going to be Matthew Hibbs leading for the first time, as I have just been informed by my crew chief that the leader is pitting now.
Well, I mean, I think see, I don't know. I'm gonna stick with my whole draft dilemma. I think if you're leading, you're sitting in the catbird seat. From what we've seen, nobody has been able to push around the lead car.
And it, like I said, it continues to be interesting because the cars to follow are, of course, the ones that have pitted. So right now, your new leader, once it cycles through, will be Bobby Labonte, as he is the first car of the pit group. What makes that more interesting is that now every car that is pitted is in fact behind Bobby Labonte at this point in time. In fact, here comes Matthew Hibbs and Kyle Busch. So that's going to leave out Jerry Nadeau to lead his first lap of the race.
I would say that actually worked out very well for the people that just pitted. I believe that was obviously besides under caution, that was our biggest pack of cars to come pit. The problem now being, you look at these two, especially now that Cooper Webb's going to battle with Nadeau for the lead. You got those two by themselves. Bobby Labonte is how you would say in no man's land, and then you got 3 wide behind them. I would say the 3 out front are definitely sitting ducks.
Absolutely.
But you have to look too. When do all these guys that just pitted come out of pit road? And where do they come out of pit road?
As Cooper Webb is going to hit pit road, and that's going to once again put Jerry Nadeau back to the lead, as Bobby is going to look like hold up both lines in an incredible display there move. And in fact, Majeski is going to get a run here, and it looks like Barcia is as well. But it was a good move, I think, by Bobby to really hold both lines up and really set himself up in a position to hold this spot, because, well, actually, I think he's still leading either way. But now Nadeau, who was in the lead, and in fact, Bobby has been passed. Jarrett Brooks technically ahead of him. Harrison Burton now technically leads.
I wonder if he led that last lap.
I don't believe he led the last lap, but it does look like he is going to lead this lap, as Harrison Burton is your leader at the line.
This has got me all confused.
Absolutely. I don't know which car out of this group is on the lead lap other than Bobby Labonte, Harrison Burton, Nadeau, and the 61, Garrett. Other than that, I'm not really sure which car is on the lead lap, who's where. I'm pretty sure Hibbs is one of the cars pitted, and you can see Harvick pushing forward on the outside. That outside group is the 3-car group that we watched pit together. Harvick, Deegan, and Danica, and they're all trying to get their lap back the hard way. As in probably the most interesting bit of this, Jerry Nadeau still hasn't hit. Or am I just not thinking correctly, and was Jerry Nadeau one of the cars that was on pit road at the stage break?
May have hit another stage break. I believe we have a new leader.
Yes, Jerry Nadeau goes back to the lead.
I think timing and scoring is having a heck of a time trying to figure this bunch out, just as we are.
Absolutely. It's a whole bunch of confusing. We don't know who the actual leader is, although at this point it does appear to be Jerry Nadeau, who is 4th on the inside. This is the truck race all over again.
Way different dynamic, though. Like the truck race, we had 4 guys stay out, so it's a little bit easier to kind of tell once they got caught up. But today, a little over half the field still had to pit, and this is giving us a loop, that's for sure.
Absolutely. As Kyle Busch is now the leader of the inside line, as they just single file it out. And you can see Anderson, who has been one of the best cars leading the field. He was leading that outside line, and it just wasn't moving forward, really. As Matthew Hibbs jumps to that outside, and they're going to try to push their way, and we'll see if this works now. We'll see if maybe it is Anderson pushing that has been an incredible car. Maybe it is just Anderson. Who knows? Because he's pushing Matthew Hibbs to a battle for the position and lead car of this group.
Looking at timing and scoring as it scrolled through, your top 3, at least at the line, was Nadeau, Labonte, and Craven. And I believe it said Tomac was in 4th. And just to put that into perspective, look at where they all are on that inside line.
Absolutely. And there's your 8. So the 8 that had pitted was Leroy Jenkins, Harrison Burton, Jarrett Brooks, Travis Pastrana, Ricky Craven, Eli Tomac, Bobby Labonte, and Jerry Nadeau. So, and those are the 8 guys that are currently on the lead lap, without a question. All the cars that are currently in front of Jerry Nadeau are on the lead lap, and everybody behind Jerry Nadeau, other than the 8 or the other 7 cars we had mentioned, are currently a lap down. So that kind of helps us out a little bit. Now knowing who's what and where. I think Kyle Busch and Jason Anderson are actually battling for 9th, and that's for the front of the field.
Which, interesting note, we have been talking about it the whole time. Is Anderson just that good out front? I think your answer is yes, because he right now is the only person that's been able to pull even with that bottom line, and is actually nosing ahead a little bit here.
Absolutely, and this is intriguing to see because it's like you said, it's Anderson's car at this point that we really have to give the credit to. That car is dominant.
I'm just still in awe at how this is playing out. This is big race implications, because obviously, we will have a lucky dog, potentially wave rounds, obviously, but other than that, if you're riding around Nadeau, like right now, Kevin Harvick, Chase Briscoe, Gregson, Deegan,
They all
you're
want to
all
get in
fighting
front
for
of
your
them. Yeah,
life at this point.
yeah. At this point, right now, there are all of 4 cars that are still on the lead lap that aren't a part of the 8. As Barcia looks to the outside and possibly is going to make it just down to 2. And does. It's currently the only 2 cars other than the 8 that had pitted. So actually, it's 10 cars on the lead lap because it's just Kyle Busch and Cooper Webb.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at timing and scoring. You're right. So there's 10 cars in lead lap right now. Barcia is currently your lucky dog candidate, and I believe would be comfortable with that since he's leading that second line as we are coming to 9 to go on the stage. But
well, as of right now, Barcia would be back on the lead lap.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to change 20 more times before we get here, as Hibbs, I believe, jumps out to try and put himself in that position.
And it's Barcia looking... And what makes this more interesting is knowing that everybody has to get to the front of this group just to battle for stage points out of these cars that are all in that position to be a lap down.
Yeah, you're fighting for your race at this point, and you're fighting for lucky dog and stage points, and definitely throws a wrench into the whole thing, like I said, because you could easily find yourself competing for a win come, lap 119, 118, around there, or you could find yourself fighting for, at this point, anywhere from 11th to dead last.
As we ride on board with Cooper Webb, currently sitting in 10th place and the last spot of the points getters on the stage, and you can see it had to be something with Anderson, because everybody has been able to kind of pull even with Kyle Busch. We're 4 wide further back in the field.
It's going to be interesting.
As we do actually
there we go.
Have cars in the wall, and they actually look like they made it out okay. Although one of them looks like Hibbs, absolutely, and I believe it was Barcia that was the other car, as we'll actually now... Well, I guess we won't be taking it backwards, as it doesn't want to cooperate with me. Okay, there it is, but at this point, I think we've gone too far ahead, and best to stay with the live picture.
So one thing to touch on too, obviously last night we had the issue with the lap cars falling back to the back of the field. Potentially here, we could have a lot of the same situation depending on if the leaders pit and if guys take the way around, as Barcia came into pit road to get that damage fixed.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't be surprised if Hibbs isn't too far behind him. Although Hibbs is staying out. He might, again, they don't know, but if that car can survive to the stage, he might be okay.
Looks like he's falling off, though. I know Harvick kind of just drove around him.
I know.
Not sure if he'll pull off here or not.
The big surprise out of that whole situation, though, has to be Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely dominated the whole first stage. I would argue, I think, led the whole stage, if I'm not mistaken.
He did. He led the first 30-some laps.
So, big implications for sure. This stage break will be interesting. Just obviously one to see who gets Lucky Dog right now, which I believe would be
Matog.
okay.
He is
And then
currently running in 11th, the first car lap down.
and then like I mentioned too, potential waiver rounds. If the same 8 or 10 pit, do they get the waiver round to get back on lead lap? Then come, obviously later in the race, do we have the same dilemma where they all have to pit?
Absolutely, and what's going to help the two out in front is that they're currently still on the lead lap. They're going to pit.
We would assume.
You would assume that they're going to pit.
But again, AI have proven us wrong before. I would not be surprised if we get proved wrong again.
I'm not going to argue with that statement.
It's I don't know. I believe Deegan, if I was just reading the ticket correctly, has moved into the Lucky Dog spot. We're coming to 4 to go in the stage.
I believe you are correct because it is now 1, 2, 3, 4 on the inside line behind Cooper Webb for position. And in fact, the actual 1, 2, 3, 4. As Harrison Burton's going to look to the outside, as I believe your new Lucky Dog might be Jason Anderson.
Well, like I said a couple laps ago, it's going to change probably 40 more times before we actually get to the stage break. But
as Tomac's going to jump out of line, and what's going to be interesting, you can continue to see Bobby Labonte has been pretty well content to ride behind Nadeau. Is he going to stay content to ride behind Nadeau and take the second place in the stage? Or could we get really interesting and see Nadeau try to step out of line and attempt to put the 8 and the 2 a lap down?
I believe it was Majeski checked up for Tomac going into 1, and that just stacked up the whole back half of the field as Labonte peeks out.
And there's my answer. It's Labonte, who is not content to ride behind Nadeau. He has no help, and he's hoping that if this is going to happen poorly, that he can get back in line before he gets passed for position. But I do believe the 61 is in fact for position, so actually it did end up losing a spot there.
Yeah, Tomac is sitting 4th right now, which at the moment Anderson was in between them, but now will not be in between them. But
Gragson, I believe, is the Lucky Dog.
Yes, as of right now, it would be Gregson's. We're coming to 2 to go here in stage number 2. And as we mentioned, there's a lot of even competitive, top of the line cars, we'll call them. As Deegan gets put in the wall by Burton off of turn 4.
And that's some young gun action back there. Deegan looking like her car is pretty well okay. She might not have actually got all the way up to the wall, or gotten into the wall per se, but all the way up to the wall. We'll have to keep an eye on her, as actually I do kind of catch a little bit of damage on that right front.
Tell you what, some tempers flaring. I don't think Burton was too pleased that the old lapper was staying in front of him, but definitely looked like he just came off the corner and almost kind of locked bumper and just never lifted off the throttle on that one.
And I
We're
would
coming
argue,
to the white flag.
Right now, the guy that's been the most consistent for stage points, Travis Pastrana.
Started shotgun on the field. We called it in pre-race. Does not matter where you start. And he has proved that.
I believe he was 3rd in the first stage. He's looking like he's going to fall back a little bit here as Bobby Labonte looks to the outside. This is going to be coming to the stage. So this is a very interesting move. He does lose his spot, it looks like, to Tomac, and he risks losing more.
As you got to imagine, Majeski may be trying to better himself potentially for Lucky Dog, I believe. But as of right now, it looks like Nadeau's going to wrap up this stage win and that valuable playoff point to come off turn 4 towards the checkered.
Yes, he absolutely does. It's going to be at the line, Jerry Nadeau.
Interesting to see here, as we mentioned, obviously, Lucky Dog, the whole situation. But with the waiver rounds, as right now it should be Gregson, Lucky Dog, and obviously that was at the line. So we'll have to wait and see where they've lined themselves up when the caution was thrown. But you look at the cars that are lapped down. Jason Anderson, Ty Majeski, Chase Briscoe, Deegan, who we assume would have damage, Danica Patrick, Harvick, Hibbs, all guys that were up front. If they stay out and take the waiver round, they're obviously going to have to pit again, which I believe everybody will have to pit at least once here in this final stage. But they take the wave around here, obviously, one, will we have the issue of, guys dropping back through the field, lap down cars or whatnot. But when they pit, will they lose a lap again? Will they be? I believe it was like Bush and
Webb.
Yes, or will they be able to stay in front of the leaders like they just did?
It'll be interesting to see. Did you get the stage there?
I did, yes.
Okay, good. All right, so we've got our stage winner, Jerry Nadeau. Eli Tomac brought it home second. Harrison Burton with the third place. Travis Pastrana, I just mentioned it. I thought he was being very consistent. I believe he had a third in the first and a fourth here. Fifth went to Jarrett Brooks. Sixth was Bobby Labonte. Seventh was Ricky Craven. Eighth would have been Leroy Jenkins, wherever he might have been. He had fallen off. I think he was behind that little incident with Hibbs there. And then Kyle Busch and Cooper Webb. Oop. There we go.
So here's, we've been talking about it. The big thing.
Who's going to pit? And it's looking like it's not going to be Jerry Nadeau. Or any of the cars that were a lap down, which is fair. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, because guess who now causes a giant problem?
All of the lap down cars.
Yeah. You remember the issue we were having?
Well, now we get to try out my theory.
Okay, what's your theory? Let's hear it now, so I can start implementing it, because
well, when all those cars come off pit road and they start getting back in line, rather than waiting for them to double up, try and give them all EOLs now. Believe Kyle
Busch and Cooper Webb stayed out, so they're going to go up and get their spots.
So So then we'll
see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens here, because this is where it's going to be very interesting right here. If these cars come up and go take their positions where they're supposed to be, then we're okay. But it's looking like they're going to fall in line. Wonderful.
Yeah, so I would start with Gregson and just start ELO them down from there. Right in the middle, move to end of line.
No.
21, 45, 98, 62, 60, 7, 04, 00.
Trying to have that do that.
24.
I think I got her. I know I did. Okay. 24.
Give it a second to kind of sort out. Yeah, I know Hibbs was one of them. 24. 22. 69. We did the 04.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of have to see where this cycles out for a moment. Because since you started at the top, it should keep the same order.
I believe we got Barsha in there.
Well, they're doubling up now, so we might have.
Yeah, but I think Barsha was the last one. Because he's going to do that. I think now we're good, though. Okay, this is... Okay, there we go. So they're starting to get figured out now. Why are the lights in the pace car off? Well, this is going to be very interesting. Damn you, AI, for once again doing this.
Well, that's what it should be. If we EOL'd them, they go single file.
Yeah, I know. I'm just. Oh, good lord.
All right, man.
This is going to be Jerry Nadeau taking them back to the green flag on the stage. Kyle Busch to his outside. Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac being the first car of the pitters. It's going to be interesting to see. The inside or the outside line doesn't really get going here, but they might be a little bit better formed up as Cooper Webb jumps immediately to the outside. Harrison Burton's going to slide in and fill that gap, and I think that'll probably wrap up the outside line's challenge. As Harrison Burton now looks to the outside. So we're getting racy dicey, and probably destructive at some point here the way they're going.
Well, as long as nobody got damage from that, I think we're better off than last night. Obviously, there's a couple guys that already had damage prior. But just off of looks, I would say, besides the single file start, which obviously if that's what we had to do, that's what we had to do.
Well, it was just single file between the wave around guys or the lap down guys, which is fair.
Yeah. Which right now, just like I did yesterday, quick point update. We have a tie for the lead with Tomac and Nadeau. Nadeau having the tie because of his lap lead bonus point. And we have a tie for third between Pastrana and Harrison Burton at 15 points. Again, Burton led a lap, so that's why he's kind of got the tie there. As Pastrana and Tomac have not led a lap, so if they can get up here and get a lap led, it'll help them out at least before the end of the race as far as points are concerned.
And what gets interesting here, so for instance, Noah Gragson right now, trying to get his lap back to Harvick. As is Briscoe and Harvick and so many other of these cars. Kyle Busch is third. He is currently fifth on the inside line, but he is third. And this is going to be something that we're going to have to follow the rest of this race. Is there just a grand total of 10 cars on the lead lap? 11 cars, I think? Something like that? What's Harvick? Or Majeski. Majeski's 11. So there's 10 cars on the lead lap. So it did give a wave around. I noticed that.
Who was Lucky Dog? It should have been Gragson, no?
It should have been Gragson. But it didn't give it to him. Well, that's just not right.
Well,
the
AI keeps on our toes.
Absolutely, and I didn't catch that when they had pitted, so I caught that now. Now is too late.
So, something we'll have to keep an eye on. The guys that are a lap down right now, obviously pitted after the top, I believe, 8. So, like Nadeau, Craven, them guys. So, in theory, you would think the top however many pit, those guys get their lap back. You know, the Harvick, Hibbs, Deegan, all them guys. Are they somewhat trapped, though, for the rest of the race? Because even though Nadeau has to pit, he pits, they get their lap back.
There's a flaw in that, though.
What's that?
Only 3 of the lead guys stayed out. The rest of them just pitted at the stage break. They can go farther than all the lap cars that didn't pit at the stage break.
So we could have a potentially very quote-unquote flawed finish here.
A very quote-unquote small finish field. It might be 10 cars on the lead lap to the finish. It could be even less. We don't know. But it's going to be interesting. Because certainly, like I said, there were 3 cars that stayed out at the stage break. They were Jerry Nadeau to trap the field a lap down. If he pits, we don't have that problem. All these guys are get their wave around, and we're good to go. However, he stayed out, trapped the field a lap down, which, hey, good on him. That's his decision. He made more work for us, so it is what it is, but he made a smart decision there. Stays out, and then Kyle Busch and I believe it was Cooper Webb stayed out. After that, the other 7 guys that had stayed out originally, or had pitted, I forget. I think they pitted at the previous stage was what it was. They decided to come down again and get fuel and tires and, you know, make themselves better off. I believe they can go at least half of this final stage.
Yeah, if my number's correct, like I said, I believe it was around like 35, 37 laps, give or take. So, I mean, we restarted with about 50 to go, 55.
I believe it would have been about 55. That's correct.
So basically a tank and a half-ish left. So even if you pitted there, you will still have to pit. But
absolutely. But
it's kind of like
they're in a spot where now Nadu, Busch, and Cooper Webb, you have to question, can they go on one more stop? Do they need two?
it's all gonna play into effect here as we wind these laps down. As I believe now we have 50 to go, maybe 49 actually. But before you know it, I mean, this race is winding down right before our eyes. Definitely way different than the truck race last night as far as, how many people can compete for the win. But still plenty of laps left. I know I'm surprised we've stayed green this long after what you said last night, but still got to get through pit stops. Still got to get, everybody back up to speed and back in line and stuff. So still a lot to figure out here.
Well, and like I had mentioned, yes, that test race went poorly in terms of green flag race, but there was no guarantee that it was going to repeat itself in this race. So it's been interesting. It's certainly been clean, and it certainly can stay clean. There's no rule that says that it's going to be a wreck fest, and there's no rule that says that it's going to be green to the finish. So it's always just kind of a gamble when it comes to super speedway racing. Other races we can kind of feel like will probably be green most of the race, but super speedway racing, to say the least, almost always is 50-50 on whether or not you get a good race, bad race, caution, whatever it might be.
Sorry. Actual admin chats discussing broadcasts and stuff, but yeah, it's I'm interested to see how the whole season goes. 'Cause I believe, where are we next? Sebring?
Sebring, yes, all 4 series.
Awesome. So it'll be interesting to see there. Obviously, not necessarily. I guess we'll just call it a quote unquote real NASCAR track, being they don't go there yet. So a lot of unknowns, obviously, but the whole fuel window situation, we see it here. We've talked about it numerous times throughout the week already. The AI not necessarily being aware of stages and all that kind of stuff, but being on, again, a quote-unquote new track with the AI, which already has a bunch of unknowns, the pitch strategy there is going to have to be, what you would imagine, more confusing than what we're seeing here today. I mean...
Well, and not to mention, you go from super speedway, everything that everybody's accustomed to. It's not a large change from normalcy to a road course that nobody knows. The AI doesn't know. Only GT guys are really going to know Sebring. And it's going to make for a very interesting moment as we see Ricky Craven finally make an attempt to try and get around Nadu on the outside, as he's got help from Cooper Webb to possibly get it done, as Matog and Jeb Burton fall in line as well. As, in fact, it doesn't matter because Nadu hits pit road. So there it is. And now becomes the question, when do we see all of the lapped cars that decided to stay out? They thought, oh, well, we'll get our lap back and we'll stay out and, we'll get the wave around. And then Nadu did what he did. So it's going to be interesting to see what we have here as Harrison Burton goes to the lead. He gets past Ricky Craven. Ricky Craven led that lap at the line, but Harrison is now the leader as Ricky Craven's going to battle back on the outside. We'll have to see how this goes as Cooper Webb is also on that high side. The absolute high side as it is.
I don't know. This is definitely something we haven't seen. Like I said, I'm anxious to see how the road course goes, because one thing about the road course we got to remember too, it's possible, with damage and whatnot, but in theory you wouldn't lose a lap pitting. And that come, no, not necessarily.
You should not. You should not lose a lap pitting at sea.
So, maybe we won't have to worry about the whole wave around and stuff like that. But as Nadu kind of
Just
says, well, I'm going to hold you guys up here. You can wait for me.
He actually manages to block 2 lines there.
A couple guys got through. I don't think, would that be a new leader from that?
I believe it could very well be at the moment. I believe Cooper Webb. Well, we'll see who's going to get to the line first. It's going to be Ricky Craven. So, new leader, yes, but still Ricky Craven. As I believe Harrison was leading before Nadu decided to put the brakes on the whole field.
I think he was as well. So who, I know you kind of were paying more attention to it than I was. Who all is left out of the quote-unquote leaders to pit?
Kyle Busch and Cooper Webb.
And that's it.
Actually, might be. I think Cooper might be looking to come here.
So Harrison pitted. Nadu just pitted as theirs.
And here comes all a good bunch of the lappers. Jeb Burton, Danica Patrick was in that group. A good bit of those lap cars there, all hitting pit road. And this was the question I was asking. You know, when do those guys come down? What's going to happen here? Because I can't see Kyle Busch anywhere. I believe he hit pit road as well. I mean, he must have.
Good question.
Well, there he is.
Or he's all out in no man's land.
I believe he had been on pit road. I believe that's what that was.
So no man's land turns into Harrison Burton's front bumper to get him back up to speed. It's Nadu, with I believe
back the lead lap.
Harvick is going to get pushed to the front.
Well, gets back to lead lap.
Yes.
As here comes more of that group. This has been really interesting because we saw in the truck race they were getting out well before the rest of the field, and in this one they're coming out at the field. And I mean at the field.
Wow, that was Jeffrey Earnhardt just hooked a right as here comes the other lappers.
And you can see, and Briscoe, weirdly, who was on the outside, just decided, you know what, I'm going to slot in with the slow guys. As we do, in fact, have a new leader. Yes, Bobby Labonte's new leader.
And if my records stand correct, this will be his first lap led tonight.
You are correct. So Bobby Labonte leads the field here.
We're down to 40 to go. So still, you know, if you have to make your pit stop, from what we assume, we're still not in the window to make it to the end. Ooh, so I would say if you pitted before this stop, you'll have to pit another time.
I stand by the belief that the only guys that are going to be good to go are Bobby Labonte, Ricky Craven, and Harrison Burton, and so on. The group of guys that all pitted when it came down to the stage, when it was the stage break.
So that'll be interesting. I think if you pitted at that last stage caution, you can make it on one stop. But if you're Nadu and all those lappers that just pitted, who I believe lost another lap from that, if I'm not mistaken, will have to pit again.
They will, yes. Yeah, there's a bunch of cars that are now 2 laps down as Nadu makes a quick move to the outside, and there goes Harrison doing it as well. And it's going to be interesting because, like we said, Cooper Webb, though, still out there. I believe he's still in position to battle for something here. Yeah, he's still on the lead lap, technically. So that
Kyle Busch has made his way into this pack.
Kyle Busch has made his way back into this pack. But more interesting is how much farther can Cooper go? He was one of those cars that had stayed out. And here comes Matthew Hibbs in, but Cooper Webb continues to stay out.
So
I'm not quite sure what just happened there between Ricky Craven and Cooper Webb.
Wonder what happened with Hibbs too, because he was by himself with 2 other lappers right there. I had assumed he could because he pitted, but obviously if he's pitting now, then I would assume wouldn't have pitted prior.
At this point, I can't tell you anything.
This is testing our broadcasting skills for sure.
This is testing something that I don't think would normally appear. Let's be fair.
This is true. Yes.
I mean, this.
One thing about AI that I brought up yesterday. If this was an actual league race, I would be able to pull up, you know, even probably ATVO for myself, some other program to kind of help us out with this, but we are kind of flying blind, as they call it, and trying to do it the best we can. As Deegan is going to hold up the inside line, will Nadu stay in line? He will.
The more interesting question is, will Bobby get back around Harrison? Because Harrison Burton has gone to lead. It's Bobby Labonte versus Harrison for the race lead, and it's just those two. There isn't another soul around that is battling them for the lead.
Yeah, showing Tomac in third on the ticker.
Although he might be getting closer now with each of these little brake check moments.
I don't even know. I guess he would be in that second smaller pack right there, no?
He is the second car. He's actually catching Bobby Labonte now.
And here comes Anderson. And I believe that was Ryan Beat coming to pit road.
I believe you are correct. As the more interesting one, I continue to keep saying it. He stayed out, but he's still out there. And I don't know how he's beaten Kyle Busch and Jerry Nadeau. Unless he had pitted later in the last stage.
Could very well be. Again, but kind of, I don't want to use this word, but it is what it is. It's kind of crappy with how we're bringing this coverage in, but you know, it's the cards we're dealt, and we're trying the best we can, as I believe that there he is.
We're so far out of it at this point with pit stops and absolutely everything coming through with this. The way that they've done it, the way that they've pitted, the way that they've confused the ever-loving hell out of us at this point.
Well, I will point out, I did catch Briscoe and Cooper just did pit.
Yes.
35 to go. So again, obviously, rough estimate, as this lapper's going to make it interesting here with Nadeau and the leader.
Especially the leader here. Nadeau gets around, but Harrison does not, and Bobby does not.
Tomac's going to take the lead
Tomac
here.
is going to take the lead. So
But
new leader, Eli Tomac.
What I was going to touch on, 35 to go when they just pitted.
Mm-hmm.
If my numbers are correct, and like I said, 37, 38 laps, obviously that's for us. I don't know if AI kind of have the same mentality as far as throttle control, but if you're in the draft and you can kind of lift a little bit and whatnot, you can make it from that lap right there with Cooper and Briscoe pitting.
Absolutely.
And then I believe Jason Anderson just pitted that last time by, as here's Briscoe coming up. So he checked up.
He checked up those guys. Yeah. Wow. That was interesting.
But as far as we know,
back,
you can make it from here if anybody still has to pit, which at this point, kind of like what you said, we don't know at this point. We're kind of, if somebody pits, they pit.
I'm pretty sure it's Harrison, Tomac, Craven, and Labonte that still need to pit. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's everybody that's on the lead lap.
Okay, because I'm trying to look at the ticker. It looks like everybody's basically 2 laps down, pretty much.
Yeah.
As this small pack in front of Harrison would technically be your last cars on the lead lap right now if the ticker is correct.
Yes, they would currently be the last group of cars on the lead lap. If there were to be a caution, everybody in front of Harrison would still be on the lead lap, and everybody that is behind him that obviously is not that group would once again be a lap down. So Haley Deegan and so on.
Which, and I will say it again, I almost want to say it's just like the NORA guys themselves. Practice Daytona races sometimes get a little out of hand. I know we did one, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago in the trucks. You actually admined it for us.
Mm-hmm.
Regular hosted was a little hairy, and I'm kind of concerned, to be honest, but it seems like when the actual green flag drops, everybody kind of settles down, they get some laps in, and, make it interesting when they need to. But like I said earlier, when you told me there were 7 cautions in that practice race you did, I was a little concerned to do this race today. But once again, the green flag dropped. They got hairy at times. We had one, I think, group of guys getting the wall, but other than that, it's been clean and green.
Absolutely, and it continues to be clean and green as Eli Tomac now is your leader. He leads Ricky Craven and Harrison Burton. Bobby Labonte has just been kind of shuffled to the back. He kept staying on that bottom line, and that Chase Briscoe moment really lost the draft of this pack, and he's nowhere to be found. So it's just 3 cars at the front now between Tomac, Craven, and Burton.
Interesting to note. I believe so. Briscoe must have been a lap down already because he's 2 down and Cooper's only 1 down. But I mentioned before this final stage started, there was a tie at the top between Tomac and Nadu. Tomac, excuse me, at the time did not lead a lap. With that lap led, he is now solely the point leader. Obviously, still, I believe we're coming to 30 to go. Math is hard. Yes, 30 to go.
Yes, this will be 30 to
So
go.
as of now, again, not how they run because that's just a lot of formula equations that we don't have the power to.
We don't have the brain power for that yet.
But as of right now, all stages and laps led, Tomac is your point leader, and we kind of touched on it before. You know, super speedway racing providing opportunities. If you even go back to yesterday, even if you would have told me leaving Daytona, Rico
Abreu would be your
would have won
point
the
leader.
race and would be your point leader in the first car truck locked into the playoffs, I would say you're nuts. If you would have told me 30 to go in this Xfinity race, one, we would have went caution free so far, besides stages, obviously. 2, Cooper Webb would be your point leader, and Travis Pastrana, for that matter, would be third. I would
Ricky
say
Craven would be the first guy in as they run.
Craven, I would believe more so than say Tomac or Pastrana, but yes.
Yes, I can agree with that. Well, Tomac's up there skill wise. I'm pretty sure.
It could be. Well, I want to point out too, looking at the ticker, your dominant car, all first stage, Jason Anderson, currently sitting in 18th position.
2 laps down.
I would say pit stops and strategy kind of got him on that one. And I'm trying to find out where our buddy Travis Pastrana is currently running, but I cannot find him on the ticker.
He's got to be there.
5th. Okay. 16 seconds back. So he is 5th.
That makes sense, though, because he was one of those guys who pitted at the end of the first stage, which ended up being this group. This group of cars that are still on the lead lap here. In best position as Ricky Craven continues to lead now. It's just now Kyle Busch is the last car on the lead lap. There are 7 cars on the lead lap, I believe.
Which, unfortunately, granted, again, we don't know if this is just a plate thing or, because we're doing stages and the whole fuel situation. So we could see the same thing at Sebring next week, but obviously they'll be on the lead lap still. Even if a caution comes out, you're going to get maybe one back on the lead lap, potentially the wave rounds, but even then, they wave around, so they won't be able to pit.
It's certainly been weird, and I do believe, from what I've seen from some of the test races at more, how do you say, normal tracks, I guess, non-super speedways, they've been pretty good about keeping cars on the lead lap for the most part. So it'll be interesting to see if this is just a super speedway thing, which I personally believe it is. But what's still going to be interesting is that we still haven't seen Tomac, Craven, and Harrison Burton onto pit road yet. And that's going to make this so much more interesting.
So I'm going to point this out as well, because we're talking about obviously being a lap down. A lot of the guys obviously got trapped 1 lap down, pitted at either this run or, his last run or whatever, and now they're 2 down. You said there's 7 on the lead lap right now, with Busch technically leading this line right here.
Yep.
It only goes from 8th to 11th that are 1 down. So even when the leaders do pit, you're only going to get, I guess, to be 4 or so cars back on the lead lap, and you're still only going to have 11 on the lead lap for that time being.
Absolutely, and there's no telling if those cars can make it to the finish.
Yeah, pretty much. I think as far as we know, again, obviously going off of what I think would be true as far as a fuel number, the only one that would be good would be Cooper Webb.
Yes, because I believe Kyle pitted the earliest, and Nadu pitted roughly around Kyle, and then Webb stayed out almost 6, 7, 8 laps longer than those two. So it'll be interesting. It certainly will be interesting because, like we said, Craven, certainly when it happens, as it stands right now, once everybody pits, Kyle Busch should theoretically cycle through to the lead.
It'll be a battle.
Yeah, based on the way I've seen the pit stops happen, is what I'm assuming Kyle Busch getting the lead.
It'll be a battle because it'd be Nadu is 8th right now, and then I believe I saw it was Leroy Jenkins who was 9th. But as you can see, he's the very back of that line, and I'm probably going to say they've lost the draft of this main pack. So when they do pit, you would mainly see Busch and Nadu be your quote-unquote leaders at that time.
And here we have the second pack. Interestingly enough, that there's your 10th place run, Kevin Harvick.
And I believe everybody else in that pack would be 2 laps down, as Cooper Webb's in no man's land.
It's all by himself. And there's Gragson, Jeffrey Earnhardt, Jarrett Brooks, Ty Majeski.
Who is your 4th place runner, by the way, if I just saw that right.
And Bobby Labonte on
The leader is
pit road. That's what that was. That was finally his pit stop, because I just got the notification as here they all come. Ricky Craven, Harrison Burton, and Eli Tomac. I got the news, leaders on pit road, and sure enough, here they come.
So this will be interesting. We'll kind of see how the owners built their pit crews. I believe Burton obviously would have been the first from his box, and then Craven, and then Tomac. So we'll see here how they come out. Because obviously
There goes
Anderson was lapped.
And here comes
Burton
Burton.
comes away.
And there goes Craven, who is going to make it out, it looks like, in front of Tomac. And Tomac, with just an abysmal stop.
And like I mentioned,
here's where I'm questioning. You saw them coming. Here they come. Does Kyle, who is now 4th, does Kyle get in front of these guys? And how many of them does he get in front of? This is going to be interesting. Yes, he does get Tomac, and you can see them up there. It was just the two of them. It's Harrison and Craven, all by themselves. And you can see, you mentioned you thought Leroy might have been too far out of the draft, but here he is, as he actually turns to 62. And there it is, Danica on her roof. Jeb Burton's in that, and did that not throw a caution? I'm sorry, that's a caution, ladies and gentlemen. That is 100% a caution. I don't even know why. How does iRacing not throw that caution?
We were asking all day if we were going to get one. Finally, between a couple lappers.
Oh my word, is Haley Deegan okay?
Both females taking a wild ride, as Tomac almost got involved in that after pit, and that would have been...
Oh my word. Look at Danica. I mean, this is just...
Both are female competitors. 2 teammates in there as well for TAC Racing, the 60 and the 62, being Doug Mytag and Ryan Beat. Kyle Busch narrowly gets away from it.
Kyle Busch just barely scrapes by. Jeb Burton not so lucky.
Who we have not mentioned all day.
I think we mentioned him once, and the only other time has been this incident.
And then I believe it's Barsha in front of that group right there.
Yes, it was. And I think Barsha did get in the wall.
Yeah, he didn't get away unscathed, but he better off than most.
As we're going to ride on board with, let's see here, if I can find it. There it is, Leroy Jenkins. And I'm going to try to find, there it is. So you can see he gets this great run, and he's just here, and it actually looks like the 62 comes down into him, and it's just gone at that point.
So interesting question here. As I'm looking at the ticker, I know we saw a couple guys pitting.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were saying, though, the wave around, Lucky Dog, the whole situation, because we're going to have under 20 to go when we go back green here.
Yeah, you can see Kyle Busch actually comes down pit road and I guess tops off. So this is a huge win for Kyle Busch in this scenario.
So here, real quick, pull up. Obviously, we don't really want to because for the broadcast, but pull up your standings. So Nadu got Lucky Dog.
Yep. Cooper Webb got his lap back. Strong. Actually, no, I believe Briscoe should be the lucky dog.
Well, was Nadu ahead of Burton, though?
Oh, no, he wasn't. You're correct.
Because they were all coming off pit road. So,
And
but here's what I was gonna ask though: should we try the EOL thing again real quick, depending on where those guys are at? Or well, if all the lead lap cars are in front of them, we're fine.
Kyle Busch is not.
But he was not like a dog.
No, he was not. Leroy Jenkins is not. Harvick is not. So yeah.
I
We're
think
gonna have
we're
to
a
get.
little late though.
Well. So I'm just gonna try to grab. So it's gonna be Gregson, Hibbs, and the 98, and I think that's the 51.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doubling up. We'll see. It potentially could work. Then you got Hibbs in the 24.
Wow. So the 69 just put Leroy Jenkins on the wall. Although he already had damage at that point, in fairness. But I just watched that happen, and that was... And what's he even waiting on now? Oh, he's got to be behind him. Oh, good Lord. Everybody else is able to cycle through there and be fine. But just the 69.
I think Briscoe got damage from that too. Not that it matters, but but no, because I think I don't know. I don't think we'll have that issue anywhere else, depending on pit stops like that.
I don't think so either, and I never did get Barsh in. Son of a bitch.
But I think, see, it's tough because we would literally have to start it when they come off pit road. Because when they come off pit road, they literally have a lap to get sorted back up.
Have them go one more time.
Yeah, I want to make.
Yeah, I want to make sure that Barsh is back where he needs to be because he was screwing Jenkins, who I know has damage, but I mean he should have still been up here and not pushed back essentially.
So here's a question that might solve this.
Mm-hmm.
Do we go? If anybody's
single
in chat,
file with lap down on the inside.
Yes.
That would certainly solve the problem for super speedways and anywhere else.
I was saying because in theory you'd have the same issue at all tracks.
Yeah, that would be the fix. And honestly, you know what I would say? Try it for tomorrow's race for the Cup Series.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of, because like I said, the only way I think what my idea would work would be if we did it as soon as they come off pit road, which super speedways you have plenty of time in my opinion to do all that.
But it becomes a problem at, say, Rockingham or Martinsville. Yeah.
So I mean, it might work, it might not, but what's the worst that happens? We try it for the Cup race, like you said, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think it'll end up being better off for us in the long run. Obviously, super speedways will make for very interesting content because the outside line will be lead laps, and the inside line will be lappers. But it'll be good. It'll be interesting. That's the best way I think I could put that. And interesting in a good way, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's not NASCAR, but I mean, like I said, we've been saying it all night, basically all day, technically. But the AI, we're working with what we got. You know, we're trying to figure out pit stops, all that stuff. I mean, if it's what we have to do to make it work, and so people don't get damaged like that. Like, granted, I don't know if Briscoe had damage before that, but I know I saw a bunch in his right rear quarter. If it saves that type of situation from happening, I'm all for it. As we go back green with math 18 to go.
That is, I believe, correct. 18 to go. Ricky Craven with just an absolute horrible start on that outside line. Him and Bobby Labonte did not get him going. And Kyle Busch, with the freshest tires, I would assume, is trying to do something. He wants to get to the front as quickly as possible. As Harrison Burton is your leader here with just 18 to go. As he's Kyle's now going to try to push Tomac to the lead. Cooper Webb on the inside, and we haven't talked about him a lot today, Kevin Harvick. A lap down. He's been all over the place, but I am pretty sure that is for position, and it in fact is Kevin Harvick at the end of this race. He's in third.
What do they call him in real life?
The closer.
There you go.
So he's closing. He is here to close. And Jerry Nadeau running fourth. So a couple guys that definitely benefited from that caution. Jerry Nadeau, Kyle Busch. Obviously Kevin Harvick, who's now looking to the inside of Cooper Webb. He's going to help his teammate, the current leader, Harrison Burton, as they're going to try to push forward. And Travis Pastrana continues to put on an incredible show here as he moves to third, and an incredible sight there on the high side for a moment. Kyle Busch was just motoring until Jerry Nadeau came up and blocked it. And now Kevin Harvick is going to look to the outside, and it's going to be Travis Pastrana filling the hole. He moves to second as they get 3 wide, and this is finally the 3 wide battle we were hoping for. The incredible finish is now 3 wide for the lead. We've seen 3 wide today, but it has not at all been for the lead, as I think Harvick might currently be clearing, and I think he's going to clear Harrison Burton. Kevin Harvick, the closer, to the lead.
We are now 4 wide. It looks like to be 3rd or 4th in line. Another thing to point out, too, happened yesterday. There is no green, white checkers with the AI. So if we get 2, would there be 3 laps?
I think it'd be 4.
Okay, so we'll just
the
say
base
3 to
car.
4.
Yeah.
But, the race is over. So I would say getting to the front now is as important as it'll ever be. And I'll be a little biased here. If I ever want to see teammates work together, it is now. Kevin Harvick, Harrison Burton, teammates for JRC Sim Team 1, 2. You want to see them work together, but obviously, like we've been saying all day, it's the AI. You never know. So we'll have to wait and see as we wind down these last, I guess you could say, 14 and quarter laps.
And I've kept the camera kind of focused on it because I wanted to mention it. That big run that we saw from Kevin Harvick, courtesy of Cooper Webb pushing that car.
And we kind of mentioned it earlier in the race with Anderson. Is it a matter of, the rubber or something as simple as the track temp? We started a little bit earlier than the truck race. So was that middle line, maybe a little hotter? I mean, obviously, I don't know because I don't know if AI even work like that. But could it have been something like a rubber level, track temperature, anything? But earlier in the race, we saw nobody able to push, besides Anderson, really, to get even with, I would say, second line or definitely the first car leading the line. But like you just said, Cooper Webb got right to Kevin Harvick's bumper, pushed him out front, and now Harvick's kind of just showing the field right now as we come down to 13 to go.
And you can keep watching each and every lap, off of 2 and off of 4. Travis Pastrana just not holding the inside line, and Bobby following right along with him. And I don't know if that's Bobby wanting to stay tucked. I don't know if that's Bobby having the same setup issue. What's going on there? But each and every lap, and you'll probably see it right here, those 2 cars, there they both go. They move up the racetrack, and there goes Ricky Craven to the outside.
Yeah, Craven actually followed that time. That's going to cost him as Cooper Webb fills the gap. But I'm going to say this just from, like I said, what we've seen with the test. I would say if Harvick can grab this win and hang on, if history, again, repeats itself, I would say this field is in a heap of trouble come the mile and a half.
Absolutely, and you could see the middle line. I think Jeb might still have some underlying damage. He's running well. They put a brand new nose on that race car. Credit to the Nightmare guys for getting that car as fixed as it is. But I just don't know that he's got the pushing power that, say, Cooper Webb had.
It's going to be interesting. They're getting up there, I believe, right now. They are in line with Pastrana, maybe at Burton's right rear. Yeah,
yes,
they're at Burton's right rear. So they're making a run. It can be done. It was just proven that it can be done. I think you're going to need a heck of a push. From what we've seen, I don't think anybody besides Anderson and obviously now Cooper Webb can really provide that push.
I do believe you still need more than just 2 cars, though. And here comes, you just mentioned him. Jeb's going to move out of the line, almost as if to say, you know what, Anderson, you go ahead and push. But then Craven decides, well, I want to stick with Jeb. And that just doesn't end up working out for him as the teammates line up. And will we see the Anderson push Webb to the front duo?
Even Tomac's right there on the inside of them. So I think it's Rebel Racing teammates right there battling. We're coming down to it. It's gonna be 10 to go this time by, so we're approaching that, point of no return if a caution comes out. So I believe Labonte pokes his nose out of line, and he's gonna try the second line.
He's gonna try to lead this line, and we'll see if Cooper Webb goes with him. It doesn't look like the 62 wants to go with those two. So we'll see what's going to happen here. Now it's Labonte Cooper on that outside line, as Harrison is not going to stick with his teammate. He wants the lead. He wants to win this race, and you could see it in the distance. There is a lapped car that could ultimately end up deciding the fate of this race.
I'm not 100% sure who that would be. I guess it's got to be somebody with damage.
It's Gregson.
It is.
Because there he is. It's Noah Gregson. And the only car that clears through of the leaders, I believe, is Harrison Burton.
So this just got interesting because I don't know who would be second right now.
Bobby Labonte.
Right.
Labonte is currently second, and then it'll be Cooper Webb and Kyle Busch.
As Harvick is still stuck behind Gregson as we're coming to about 8.5 to go.
And Gregson absolutely has damage now. And here's where it's going to get really interesting. Because now Bobby is teamed up with his teammate Jeb Burton on the outside. They're going to try to push to the front and possibly get Bobby past Harrison, which oddly enough is Jeb's cousin. So it's getting real interesting in different things, different ways. As the 4 Nightmare cars are all grouped together, but only 2 of them really in contention for this. And then Harrison continues the lead over Cooper Webb currently.
So I'm gonna keep an eye on it, just to kind of see what he can do with it. Harvick cleared Gregson. I believe he's trying to grab Jeffrey Earnhardt's draft and maybe get back to that pack. But again, can't preach it enough. AI, you don't know what they're gonna do. If he catches this pack, will he make a move?
As you say that, immediately Kyle Busch decides, I'm going to go to the outside.
I think if we're going to see it, it's going to come. We're coming down to 7 to go, which, like I said, I said 3 to 4 laps. We're not 100% sure. I think it depends, like you said, when they catch the pace car. But you're coming to that point of no return if we get a caution.
Absolutely, and it's getting down to crunch time. You've got Harrison Burton, Cooper Webb, and Bobby Labonte currently your 1, 2, 3. As you were keeping an eye on him, you don't have to anymore. The closer's back.
But again, I think they want to go. They're just trying to time it. Right now, I think Harrison's almost in the catbird seat. He's got a lapper in between, second, third, and fourth. Yep. But you just don't know. Is that lapper going to try and make a move and kind of play spoiler for say?
As Harvick does, in fact, decide, I'm going to look to the outside, as he's going to have help from Jeffrey Earnhardt, and it's going to be Kyle Busch and Bobby Labonte teaming up on the bottom side behind Cooper Webb, Travis Pastrana getting there, and Kyle Busch decides, no, I want to go to the outside again, and this time it's Kyle Busch and Harvick on the outside, but they're just not grouped up yet. Now we'll see if they can get grouped up and pushed to the front, because they are certainly 2 of the best at it.
Harvick's gonna go to the third line. I preached it earlier in the race. I'm gonna go with this package just isn't very good right now. When Harvick got the lead, it was kind of a restart. Kind of still getting through the gears. I'm gonna say that's kind of what did it. Like you said, 2 of what you would think would be some of the top cars on the track right now, and they couldn't get even close to one another.
Well, and I do think as soon as Harvick did get close, we watched him jump to the outside immediately. So it was a lot of that, and a lot of these guys just kind of being like, well, I don't want to work with you.
We have another lapper, so this is going to play spoiler. As I don't
and this is going to be very interesting, because if it holds and nobody moves off the bottom line, Bobby Labonte ought to clear to the lead. Theoretically.
You would think.
Theoretically is why I added that. If Nadu goes
Depends
to the
on
outside,
as Burton
Harrison goes
top.
to the outside. But I think there were 2 lappers.
There was.
And that
One
makes
moved out of
things
the way.
even more interesting because now Cooper Webb goes to the lead.
I think they're battling right now as we're coming to 4 to go.
And I believe Harrison got him at the line there.
Harrison's going to get shuffled out, though, to the 3rd line. I think that's going to seal his fate.
It might not, though, because this might be, well, I don't know that he has the group there to really battle on the outside. And I think Bobby is a car too far behind. And in fact, actually, I'm incorrect. Jarrett Brooks is the leader as it runs.
So he's actually battling with Burton.
Harrison
and I just
Burton.
want to point out, granted, Barsha had damage, but Jeb Burton pushed the 62 by and cleared him on the bottom.
And now, as they run, it's Harrison Burton holding on the outside. His cousin comes up and gives him a little bit of a block. It's Cooper Webb who's trying to get up there and battle on the inside. And this is just turning into an incredible moment here.
This is interesting for sure. You've got a bunch of lappers up here throwing it to the wind with the leaders, as I believe Cooper Webb, who would be your leader on the bottom line, 3rd in line. Jarrett Brooks, who I believe is 2nd in the middle line, and then Harrison Burton 2nd on the outside line.
Barsha moved to the outside line, and that outside or the middle line, and that middle line immediately started to go backwards.
That was Harrison's best wish to get clear and get down, as Briscoe's going to play a factor here.
He's not going to go high. It looks like the 60 is going to clear, the 62 is going to clear, but Cooper Webb cannot, and Harrison's going to go back to the lead, and I believe Jerry Nadeau is in fact going to move into 2nd.
This just got interesting. They all clear. They move to the middle. Barsha actually went to the bottom, so that holds up Webb as well. Burton is your leader. Nadeau is 2nd. Harvick back to 3rd, as we are past the point of no return, 2.5 laps to go.
As Nadeau is now pushing Harrison to try to clear the 62. If he does that, you could probably kiss his chances goodbye. He'd rather, I would assume, want to be side by side with Harrison right now.
As Jarrett Brooks forces nose under Harvick. Harvick now in the 3rd lane with, who do you know, Jason Anderson, and they are making a huge run to the front as he pulls even with Nadeau, coming to 2 to go.
And Harrison goes up to block that run, but now Harrison's stuck on the outside, and it's Nadeau who's on his inside and going to the lead.
Well, we say AI keeps us on our toes. I don't agree with that move from Harrison as Harvick looks to the inside. He's going to not leave his teammate out to dry. But I believe Danica's there to push her nose in the picture, as I think we have another lapper coming up.
And you could see Cooper Webb on that inside line. He's still theoretically in it. But it's where it gets interesting. I don't know what... Oh, no, those two were in the front. Here it is. There's Leroy Jenkins.
Harvick,
and look at the outside. The outside line. Harvick goes around to the front. The closer coming to the white flag takes the lead.
Coming to the bottom, white flag, Kevin Harvick. Plays the lap traffic. Leroy Jenkins takes the lead as we go into turn 1 for the final time.
And you can see Jerry Nadeau and Harrison Burton cycle through to 2nd and 3rd. Jarrett, I believe, is 4th as they run, but it is an incredible move by none other than the closer, Kevin Harvick, to possibly, it looks like, come away with this victory unless something crazy happens coming through this final corner, but I think they'll settle it out enough. Kevin Harvick comes off of the 4th turn here, and it's going to be victory for Kevin Harvick in the Xfinity Series from Daytona.
Tell you what a turn of events. We've seen it all day, and even yesterday. The lap traffic plays a factor, and right there, Leroy Jenkins. I'm not gonna, say it's his fault or anything, but held the bottom like all the lappers have done. And Harvick, whether by AI decision or just by,
being stuck up top.
Yeah, it worked in his favor. Leroy stacked up both lines just about, it seemed, and Harvick took advantage, kept his foot in it, cleared both, got to the bottom, and ended up Nadeau was actually behind him coming to the line, but couldn't have gone better, in my opinion, for
for
that whole
Kevin.
situation.
Absolutely not. That's a victory, well-earned victory for Kevin Harvick, the closer. He gains first ticket
There's the checker.
into the chase for the Xfinity Series
Bring it on home
Championship.
and let's get out of here.
And sure enough, it's just been absolutely incredible from across the board. As I believe it was Jerry Nadeau who finishes second, Harrison Burton third, Cooper Webb in fourth. I believe Travis Pastrana brought home eighth. Ninth was Ricky Craven. Tomac rounded out the top 10. Bobby Labonte was sixth. Jarrett Brooks was fifth. Kyle Busch was seventh. So it was very interesting to see there how that finished, what all happened. You could see the many differences of cars in this front pack, and it was very similar in ways to the truck race. So we'll go ahead and pull up the results for everybody so they can see it fully rather than just on the ticker. That was a really incredible race. I certainly enjoyed it yet again. Our next event for the Xfinity Series will be from Sebring, and that was just wonderful. Even with just 10 trucks, 10 cars on the lead lap, that was great racing. It really was.
I'm going to call him out on the broadcast because he just said something in one of my team chats. Josh Susie, team owner to Leroy Jenkins, is a little behind. He's at work. He's on lap 105 right now, and he said, "Don't spoil the finish," because we were putting in the chat like what a finish. So, Susie, if you catch this part of the broadcast, you're in for a treat, my friend. But
yeah,
no,
you're gonna need to send that man a gift basket or something because he just won the race for Kevin Harvick.
and obviously we know everybody's ratings and whatnot going into these races, and I would say I don't think we've actually done a road race with the NASCAR series, but depending on
No.
how we work the formulas and stuff, I would imagine we go back to I guess we'll call it the true scaling.
Yes.
We mentioned about the intermediates, the mile and a half, but I would say anywhere at this point, I would say this field's in a heap of trouble with Harvick already claiming a win.
Yes, and it very well could be the difference between somebody making the chase or not. Harvick very well could sweep 4 races in a row and really just stink up the place for a lot of guys.
And one thing too, real quick, I've done doing points kind of as we're finishing up here. Harvick obviously led a lap, so I actually forgot that point. So he's at 41 points technically, and obviously locked in. But one thing too, he did not get any stage points. He
Not a
was
one.
basically
No.
lapped down, not the first stage, but I think the whole second stage, and most of that third until that caution came out, a lap down.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I would assume he's probably not the points leader.
Yeah, as of right now, which I would imagine would hold up, obviously. Jerry Nadeau, 51 points over Harrison Burton, 49. Obviously, it's just the top 3 for now, and I'm gonna get the rest here in a little bit. But it's not like last night where Rico won the race and with his stage points and leading the lap, walked away with the point lead as well. Like I said, Harvick, 1 point for the lap led at the end, but up until that point, hadn't led a lap, had no stage points, and I mean, we'll call it how it is. Got lucky with kind of how the lap car played the field right there, but I've used it in real racing. I'll use it here. Sometimes it is better to be lucky than good.
I was just thinking that myself. It's just the way it is. We can't change how the AI decides to run when they're lapped down. They're going to stick it on the bottom whether they should or not. And in fairness, a lot of those guys, I don't know why the AI is coded the way they are. I don't know if there's a way that iRacing can change that code to make them run smarter around AI. Or Laptors. I don't know. I'm not going to answer those questions either because I don't know. But certainly, with the way it is, it's just the way it is. There's nothing we can change about it to make it more realistic other than what we do as it is.
Yeah, like I said, with the whole pit stop situation and trying to sort out the wave arounds and whatnot, we know it's not perfect. It'd be different obviously if this was, say, the real NORA B Series opener or the truck opener or whatever. We can kind of get all of our admin stuff set up and stuff like that. But we're working with what we got. Is everything going to be perfect? No, but not by any means. But for what we got, I would say this has been a great week so far. I'm excited to kind of get the 500 started. Even GT4 stuff. And like I said last night, you're more of a road guy. I know, like Watkins Glen and like me, like the NASCAR stuff, we'll say. But for the most part, you're kind of gonna have to take the lead with that, and I'll kind of be like you're in your pocket, kind of, just in the background. But I am pleasantly surprised with how the AI have gone. Like I said throughout the broadcast, I've thought it was going to be, for lack of better words, a bloodbath.
And they kept it clean until the end.
Yeah, and like I said, it almost has the actual NORA League feel. As soon as the green flag drops, granted, there's some 3 wide, 4 wide, the whole 9, but for the most part, it's clean and green. And whether we're talking about the AI series or the actual series coming up here in a couple weeks, or even this weekend with the 12-hour, that's all you can ask for. I know, again, the group chat, the guys have been chiming in, saying, they like the broadcast. It was fun to watch. They've been watching the races, like, oh, you can't believe the lapper did that. Just having fun with it and joking. And I think the truck team owner, Blade, actually said it good last night too. It's exactly what I've been saying to you, kind of privately. It's a friendly league competition, but we can have fun with it and kind of talk trash, or take it to that next level to make it interesting and make it fun. And that's exactly what we're seeing so far.
Absolutely, and you're not going to see retaliation or anybody getting pissed or any need for us to remove anybody or anything like that, because the AI don't care. And we can talk trash to one another, but when it comes time to get onto the track, the AI don't know what we've said. They're not going to drive differently because of what we've said trash talk wise, and it makes it more fun for us, I think, watching.
Yeah, I mean, it. Like I said, I think there could be a couple things iRacing could implement, coding wise, maybe, or something for teams and that whole 9. But that's obviously minor details. But no, I mean, it. I think it'll be fun. Like I said, I know the couple guys I've talked to have liked it. Um, I think it's got the potential. Maybe not obviously like a big series or whatever, but even all throughout iRacing, there's guys that are starting up leagues just for AI, kind of like what we did. It's like I said, it's relaxing, but at the same time, you can have fun with it. Just like I said, like Blade and Susie and Alex Cummings, all team owners, I believe, in every series. I think Blade is mainly trucks, but kind of all talking trash to one another. Like, oh, I can't believe your lapper did that, or oh, I can't believe blah blah blah. Or I think Susie at one point, one of his drivers pitted way out of sequence. He made a comment, you're like, oh, can't believe he just pitted. Like, why would you do that? And it's just, it's all fun. It's all league fun. We're all making fun, just having fun with it for what it is. And I'll be honest, I'm surprised. I didn't think it'd be this fun. I didn't think it'd be this fun to be in the booth. Not necessarily just with you, but with, as far as that goes too. We've had, I think, 2 people reach out and say, hey, can I jump in the booth for a race? Can I, maybe do this, maybe do that? Absolutely. I think it's going to make it more fun. I think, like we kind of said before we went live, it may not overcrowd it, maybe cap it at like say 3 or something, but I think it'll be fun. It first season, it's kind of like the big race we got coming up. Like I said, the 12-hour and the 87 500. We're kind of just messing around, playing with some treats and stuff. Like you're trying to get a dog to do a trick or something and kind of see how it works. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, doesn't work. But like I said, if you would have told me, and I know you're probably thinking the same way, if you would have told me that we would have had this much fun in the booth and calling the races and watching and all that, and the participation from some of the guys and guys wanting to be in the booth with us to do this, I would have said you were nuts. I would have said we would have done these races, and the first week it would have been dead and nobody would have done anything with it, and the whole 9. And I'll be honest with you, I could almost see this becoming maybe not
Regular.
fully permanent, but Yeah, like a semi-regular thing we do here.
Yeah. And I will say, on the subject of things that iRacing could implement, custom starting grids would be wonderful so that we could run the duels. Because for
Yes.
those that are going to tune into the 500, sadly, we won't be able to do the duels. There's just no reason to do the duels, essentially. So we'll leave that out. It'll just be qualifying before the race, and we'll go for the full 500 miles. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking highly forward to that. I'm looking forward to Sebring next week. I'm looking forward to the GT4 race. And for anybody that isn't a part of this, that don't have a team or don't have cars, and you want to be a part of this, either get with myself, Nick Eilis, or Josh Conover. We'll get you into the Discord. We'll get you everything you need to know, and we'll get you set up with your team, your trucks, your drivers, your cars, whatever it might be, and you get to be a part of it too.
Also, breaking news from the TAC Racing camp. Post-race altercation between Leroy Jenkins and Jarrett Brooks after Jenkins blocked Brooks for saying kind of, I would say, cost him the race on that one.
Yeah, Jenkins somehow managed to block 2 lines on that. And in fact, while we're sitting here and we can, why don't we actually, as the replay thing pops up for me and I can't see what I'm doing, please go away. It hasn't gone away. Okay. So I will
That
have
worked.
to, I had to close the ticker there, but I think that's fine. I think we've all seen where everybody's finished. Let's actually go back, and I don't know what lap it was where Jenkins made it. Would be right here. So you can actually see there's the mention, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jerry Nadeau isn't too thrilled about what happened there. Jarrett Brooks, well, up there, but you can kind of see right up here. So here is Leroy Jenkins, and if I can, there it is. So as you can see, here comes the field, and the 62 kind of comes down, is partially blocking both lanes, but because of where he's running, because of that, he slows up when Jenkins gets there, and it blocks up that outside line as well. And on the outside, on the absolute outside, you can just see Kevin Harvick come flying around the outside.
Just to put into perspective, too, how big of a run that actually created for Harvick, I think he was in line with Harrison Burton and Jarrett Brooks going through 3 and 4. So he was actually even further back.
Yeah.
And he ends up clearing that entire line.
And you can just see in real time how quickly that car moved forward.
Yeah, like I said, it just granted, like I said, I don't know if it was decision making from the AI or just kind of how the cards played out for him being stuck up there, but it worked. Obviously, just another good finish. We had a caution last night, but another good finish. I'm just ready for the 500 now.
Absolutely, I can't wait for that. So I think that about does it for us here. We'll see you guys for the next Xfinity race at Sebring. But of course, before that, will hopefully be tomorrow. I say hopefully because that is a long race and we'll see what happens. But it'll be the Daytona 500. And until then, I'm Nick Geilis. He's
Josh Conover.
And this has been the National Oval Racing Association. I don't know why I just said that as a question, but this has been the NORA broadcast team. Signing off.